When my dad got sick, my siblings suddenly disappeared. I drove him to appointments, paid for meds, even bathed him when he couldn't stand. After he passed, my brother reappeared and said we need to split the estate evenly. I showed him the receipts, the hours logged, the debts I covered. He laughed and said, "You chose that. Doesn't mean you get more?" At the lawyer's office, they handed out heirlooms. I got nothing. He said you already had your time, the attorney explained. A month later, my brother sold Dad's tools I used to fix everything. I found them at a flea market, with price tags. When my dad started getting sick, it didn't hit all at once. It was little things at first. He would lose his balance getting up from the couch. He would stand in the kitchen, staring at the fridge like he forgot why he even opened it. He was slower, quieter, not himself. At the time, I was living 3 hours away, working a decent job. I had friends, a girlfriend, a life. But when I visited that Thanksgiving and saw how much he'd changed, I knew something was wrong. After dinner, while Dad dozed off in his recliner, I called my brother Tom and my sister Marcy. I told them, "We need to come up with a plan. He's not doing good." Tom said, "I'll try to visit soon, man, but work's insane. You know how it is." Marcy said, "The boys have soccer every weekend. It's just not a good time." I said, "Yeah, okay." But inside I knew. They were already stepping back, already deciding that someone else would handle it. I lasted another 2 weeks before I packed my stuff, broke my lease, and moved back to Dad's house in Canton. I didn't ask them for anything. I figured stupidly that they would eventually step up. They didn't. The first year was rough. Dad was still Dad most days. He could move around, joke, watch the Browns lose on Sundays. But there were bad days too. Days when he didn't know what month it was. Days when he fell trying to get out of bed. Days when I sat in the parking lot after a doctor's appointment, crying and hitting the steering wheel because they had no answers. I kept calling Tom and Marcy. They kept making excuses. "I'll try next month. Things are tight. We'll see after the holidays." They didn't come for Thanksgiving, or Christmas, or Dad's birthday. Meanwhile, the bills stacked up. Dad's insurance barely covered anything. His prescriptions alone drained every penny I had saved. I took odd jobs, landscaping, fixing cars, painting houses, anything flexible so I could still be there for Dad. I paid for a chair lift out of pocket after he fell down the stairs one night. I bathed him when he couldn't stand. I wiped him when he couldn't make it to the bathroom. I sat up all night rubbing his back when the pain was so bad he couldn't sleep. I logged every expense, every hour, not because I thought I'd ever get it back, but because part of me needed proof that I was doing something right. That it wasn't all in my head. 2 years of this. 2 birthdays, 2 Christmases, 2 winters without a single call from Tom or Marcy asking, "Hey, do you need a break?" Dad finally passed on a Tuesday morning. It wasn't peaceful. He fought. Hard. Until he couldn't anymore. I called Tom first. He said, "Oh man. I'm so sorry. I'll try to get there by Friday." Friday. Marcy texted. Not even a call. Just, "So sorry." "What's the plan for the funeral?" The funeral was small. A few old friends. Some neighbors. Tom and Marcy showed up late. Sat in the back. After the service, they hugged me stiffly. Asked where the lawyer's office was. Like they couldn't wait to divvy up what was left. At the lawyer's office a week later, Tom showed his true colors fast. He plopped into a chair, leaned back, and said, "So, how do we split everything?" I just stared at him. I pulled out my notebook. Dropped it on the table. Receipts for medicine. Hospital bills. Home repairs. Grocery lists. Hours logged taking Dad to chemo. Physical therapy. Specialist after specialist. Credit card statements showing thousands in debt. I said I put everything into taking care of him. I gave up my job, my apartment. I think it's only fair that Tom cut me off. "Bro, you chose to do that. Nobody told you to. That doesn't mean you get more." I looked at Marcy. She shrugged. The lawyer spoke then, flipping through the will. "Your father left specific instructions. He said Opie had already been compensated in memories and time shared." My mouth went dry. I couldn't believe it. All I had sacrificed. All I had given. Gone. Tom smiled like he had just won a prize. Marcy looked relieved, already making plans with her eyes. They split everything. Tom got the house, the tools, the coin collection. Marcy took the furniture, the jewelry, the photo albums. Me? Nothing. Not even a thank you. I left the office in a fog. The next month was the worst of my life. I sold my truck to pay off some of the debt. Moved into a crummy basement apartment. Worked 2 jobs just to stay afloat. One Saturday, trying to kill a few hours, I wandered through a flea market outside Akron. And there they were. Dad's tools. The red Craftsman chest with the Best Dad sticker I put on it when I was 6. The oak workbench Dad built himself the summer I turned 12. His lathe. His drill press. All laid out like junk. Tags slapped on. $50, $75, $10. I stood there shaking. The vendor told me he picked 'em up from some guy clearing out a house. Tom. I felt this cold, hard rage build inside me. He didn't even try to keep them. Didn't even offer them to me. Just dumped them for cash. That was when I knew. If Tom and Marcy wanted to act like I didn't matter, I was going to show them just how wrong they were. I didn't go crazy. I didn't scream at Tom. I didn't smash the flea market table even though my hands itched to. I just quietly took pictures of every tool, every price tag, every bit of Dad's life being sold off like trash. Then I went home, and I started planning. First, I pulled out my old notebooks, the ones I had filled with every dollar, every hour, every appointment. Next, I called an attorney. Not the one Dad used. Someone local. Someone hungry. I laid it all out. Dad's estate hadn't gone through probate properly. Tom had rushed the sale of everything. He had skipped filing full financial disclosures. And legally, I had a strong case for undue influence and unjust enrichment, especially because I had receipts. Literal receipts. The lawyer smiled after flipping through my binder. You have a real shot here, she said, especially if he didn't disclose selling those tools, or if the will wasn't properly witnessed. I've seen cases like this turn fast. I signed the retainer that afternoon. Meanwhile, I made some other moves. Tom had listed the house for sale. I found out because a for sale sign went up on Dad's front lawn, right next to the flowers I planted with Dad the summer before he got bad. I went to the open house, walked through like any other potential buyer. Noticed all the little things Tom hadn't fixed. The cracked foundation, the leaking pipes, the loose railing. I made a few quiet calls to the city inspectors. Tipped them off. Anonymously, of course. 2 weeks later, the house was flagged for code violations. The sale fell through. Tom lost the buyers. Had to dump thousands into emergency repairs just to get it back on the market. Meanwhile, my lawyer sent him the first letter, notice of pending litigation. Tom called me that night. Dude, are you serious right now? You're suing me? After everything you got? I laughed. What did I get, Tom? Remind me. He sputtered some crap about family and forgiveness. I hung up on him. Next was Marcy. She had taken all the jewelry, some of it valuable. Stuff that was supposed to stay in the family. I found out through a mutual acquaintance that Marcy's husband had listed a few pieces online. High-end estate sale sites. Some of it already sold. Big mistake. Dad's will had a clause about family heirlooms, not to be sold outside of family without mutual consent. My lawyer filed another claim, this time targeting her. Now both of them were drowning in legal fees. I wasn't even after the money anymore. I wanted them to hurt. I wanted them to sit awake at night, sick to their stomachs. The way I had after Dad died. I kept it quiet. Cold. Professional. The best revenge wasn't loud. It was slow. A few months later, mediation started. Tom looked like hell. Hair thinner. Eyes bloodshot. Marcy was crying before we even sat down. They offered me a settlement. A big one. I could have taken it and walked away. But I wanted more. I wanted the tools. The house. The memories they tried to erase. I countered. I wanted the full value of the estate. The tools returned or reimbursed at fair market value. My legal fees covered, and public acknowledgement that they abandoned Dad in his final years. It dragged on. Tom tried fighting. Tried bullying. Tried guilt-tripping. Marcy tried to play the victim. I stayed steady. No yelling. No bargaining. No second chances. Finally, facing mounting legal bills, public embarrassment, and the real risk of losing even more, they cracked. Tom gave up the house. Signed it over. Marcy surrendered what jewelry she hadn't sold and paid cash for what she had. And the tools? Most were gone. But I got enough back to rebuild. And when I walked through Dad's old house again, my house now, I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just got to work. Fixing the railing. Sealing the foundation. Clearing the garden beds. I restored every corner of that house with my own 2 hands. Piece by piece. The way Dad would have wanted. After everything was signed and done, I thought maybe that would be it. Maybe I could finally breathe. But the thing about people like Tom and Marcy? They don't learn. They just get sneakier. About a month after I officially owned the house, I started finding things. Weird things. First, it was a hidden envelope behind the bookshelf in Dad's office. It had a set of old photographs inside. Black and white, edges worn down. One showed my dad as a teenager standing with a man I had never seen before. On the back, written in Dad's neat handwriting, my real father. John P. Taylor, 1949. I froze. We had grown up hearing about Grandpa Joe, Dad's father, the man who raised him. But this was someone else. A real father. A different bloodline. There were letters too. Dozens of them. Dad had kept in touch with John P. Taylor for years. They talked about business, life, regrets. And hidden inside one of those letters was a mention of the land. A property outside of Canton that Dad had inherited but never talked about. A 10-acre stretch of woods and fields registered under a trust. A trust with my father's birth name, not the name we all knew. It wasn't part of the will because Dad had never transferred it properly before he died. It was buried in paperwork. Forgotten. Missed by everyone. Except me. I spent days digging through the county records, the bank records, everything. And there it was. Clear as day. An untouched, fully owned piece of land worth a hell of a lot more than the crumbling house Tom had fought so hard to steal. Land that by blood and by discovery was mine. When I realized it, I sat down hard on the floor of Dad's old bedroom and just laughed. Deep, broken laughter. Tom and Marcy had ripped the family apart fighting for scraps. Pennies. Meanwhile, I was sitting on land worth 6 figures, maybe more. I kept it quiet. No announcements. No posts. No warning. I filed all the proper paperwork, updated the title, and paid off the back taxes. Then I made my next move. I sold the house. Not to just anyone. I sold it to a nonprofit that renovated houses for veterans. For a little less than market value. A few months later, they moved in a disabled Marine and his family. I handed him Dad's old flag that used to hang in the garage. "Hope it brings you luck," I said. He shook my hand, tears in his eyes. That was the only moment I let myself cry too. Meanwhile, Tom found out. He called me again, this time furious. "You sold Dad's house to some charity? Are you insane? That was our family home." I didn't even bother arguing. I just said, "You sold his tools at a flea market, Tom. Don't talk to me about respect." He cussed me out and hung up. Marcy texted, begging me to be reasonable. To think about family. I left her on read. Owning that land changed everything. It wasn't just about the money. It was about finally having something that was mine. Something no one could steal or guilt me out of. At first, I thought about selling it and moving far away. Starting fresh somewhere nobody knew my name. But then I had a better idea. I decided to build. I didn't want a big house. I didn't want a fancy life. I wanted a workshop. A real one. Big enough to rebuild all the projects Dad and I used to dream about. To fix engines, craft furniture, maybe even open a little side business. I poured everything I had into it. I hired local contractors who had worked with Dad before. Guys who remembered him. Guys who cared. We built it from the ground up, a huge steel barn, fully wired, fully plumbed. Windows that opened onto the fields and woods. A loft for living space. Nothing fancy, just strong. Real. It took a year. During the year, Tom and Marcy tried to creep back into my life. At first, it was little things. Tom sent a birthday text. Marcy sent a Christmas card. Both pretending like nothing had ever happened. I ignored them. I wasn't stupid. They didn't miss me. They missed what I had. I didn't respond. But the real blow came later. Turns out, after all the lawsuits and legal fees, Tom's life had fallen apart. He had mortgaged his own house to pay lawyers. Lost his job. His wife filed for divorce. Marcy wasn't doing much better. Her husband lost a ton of money gambling. They had to downsize into a small rental. Both of them had been counting on Dad's house selling for top dollar to bail them out. Instead, it went to a disabled veteran for pennies. And I owned land they never even knew existed. One cold morning in March, Tom showed up at my new shop. Uninvited. I was outside, sanding a table I had made from old oak salvaged from Dad's backyard. I saw his truck pull up rusty, smoking. And I knew this wasn't going to be pretty. Tom got out looking rough. "Hey," he said. I didn't say anything. Just kept sanding. He stood there a long time. Finally, he said, "Look, man. I messed up. We both know that. But we're family. I set the sander down, wiped my hands, looked him straight in the eye. You made your choice, I said. You made it the day you laughed in my face in that lawyer's office. He looked like he might cry. Come on, man. Just help me out. Lend me a little. I'm good for it. We can fix this. I shook my head. You're not my problem anymore. He stared at me for a long time. Something in him broke. I could see it. Without another word, he turned and got back in his truck. He peeled out, throwing gravel across the drive. I never saw him again. Marcy tried once more, a long email about forgiveness, about moving forward as a family. I deleted it without reading past the first line. Today, as I sit in my workshop, with the windows open to the fields Dad left me without even knowing it, I feel something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I didn't get it by screaming. I didn't get it by begging. I got it by surviving. By outlasting the people who thought loyalty was something you could toss away when it got hard. By building something real, brick by brick, memory by memory. I didn't win because I was smarter or better. I won because I stayed. When they walked away, I stayed. And in the end, that made all the difference.